Here in the studios in Washington, John Panzer joins me, economist and director of the World Bank's Macroeconomics and Fiscal Management Group. Good to see you on a very difficult situation that we have going on. You heard Li Lingtan talk about the monetary resources and some of the economic challenges. Can we overcome this, or is the damage already done?
Well, thank you. There's been a lot of damage done, and there's a lot of suffering going on in these countries, but it's very clear that this global crisis can be addressed if with sufficient celerity we can put in the resources, the medical personnel, the equipment, the protective equipment, and the protecting of the economies of these countries over the next 3 and 4 months to put this crisis to a stop. If that happens, we can foresee a quick rebound of these economies and a controlled damage.
At the beginning of this crisis, there was a lot of criticism as to who was going to take the lead to fight this. A lot of the countries that you expected to didn't have the resources. Then you had organizations such as the World Bank and other large organizations begin to put in the efforts. You guys have done a lot on this as well. Do you feel like you're taking the lead on this?
Well, I don't think the World Bank is taking the lead. The World Bank is working with other partners, particularly with the WHO and the United Nations. But of course, President Kim is extremely committed to this global cause, which has enormous implications for Africa. Africa is a continent that has been doing very well in the last decade. It's where the highest propensity of poverty exists in the world, and it's extremely important for the World Bank mission to address this crisis in an effective manner.
You talked a little bit about the economic damage. It is severe, and a lot of people don't realize these economies, they're not hundreds of billions of dollars. A lot of them can be quite small. The numbers may be small, but the percentages are huge because they're small countries. Can they overcome that, or is this something that simply just isn't being discussed because it's not important right now?
You are absolutely right. The numbers don't look so big because the economies are small. If this was what is happening in Liberia would be happening in Canada, we'd be speaking about an impact of $900 billion. Instead, because it's Liberia, it's $100 million. But this can be addressed provided that with celerity, this crisis can be contained in the next 4 months.
There's been a lot of discussion. This goes back to the criticism. Countries say, hey, we don't have enough resources nor the money to combat this. And the global community begins to put together something. And that takes a tremendous amount of time that ends up being wasted, essentially. Is there a way to have some sort of emergency fund that can be dispersed perhaps quicker?
I think that is a point that is going to be actively discussed at the upcoming annual meetings of the World Bank and the IMF in October 10 to 12 in Washington, because there's clear need as the world is so interconnected and we always are seeing new crises emerge, that it would be good to have some financial architecture to address these issues more promptly than we can do it now.
Li Ling mentioned this a bit. She talked about some of the countries that were providing resources, money basically, to help combat this. And I hate to put a number on it, but is there a number that's enough? I mean, whether it's $500 million or $1 billion or $2 billion, what number are we looking for, or is it unlimited, basically?
It's not unlimited. There's a number that is now on the table, which is being put as part of the WHO roadmap, which looks that with $1 billion and with the possibility to mobilize those resources effectively, this crisis can be put to an end and any future impact can be contained. However, if we're not successful at that, either in mobilizing the resources or deploying them effectively, the cost of this crisis would be enormous in the billions of dollars.
What are you worried about? When you say mobilizing the resources, what's the one thing you're worried about?
Well, it's the difficulty of bringing the people, the resources, the effectiveness of providing all this care in countries that are very fragile, that have very weak institutions. It will require a lot of effort.
If there's one organization that you'd like to step up and do more for this, what do you want to see?
I think everybody has to do more. Everybody has to do more. I think the coordination mechanisms that are put in place now are effective. People are working very hard. And I have to say that sometimes it goes untold. A lot of the effort is being made by these poor countries themselves. They are themselves putting lots of resources that they don't have to spare to try to contain their own crisis.
And if this was to stop tomorrow, hypothetically, how long will it take for these small countries to recover?
I think they could rebound very, very quickly. all three of them. Our estimate is that even if this is contained, it takes 3 more months to contain it. The economic cost of this crisis for 2015 would only be about $100 million, and most of it in Liberia. So it's very possible.
One thing at a time. John Panzer, good to have you on the show. Thank you for the very candid discussion as to the impact this is having on those countries.